It's great to be here. Penn's asked me to facilitate the session, which is actually, I think, a tricky little thing to stop me giving a speech. It's okay with me. Yeah, no. Well, yeah, that's right. I'll say this now. So what I'm going to do is invite some panel participants to the panel table. But I should note that we are a very, very sustainable organisation at Business New Zealand. But as Penny said to you, if you wear Birkenstocks in my office, it is a dismissible offence. So we try to keep it corporate. If I could ask the following panel participants to the panel table: Christopher Luxon of Air New Zealand, Fraser Winneray at Mighty River Alistair, Davis at Toyota, Mike Bennett at Z, David Smole at MB, and Vicky Robertson at MFE. If you could all come forward, please, and take your seats at the table. Thanks very much. How this is going to operate is we're going to ask each of the business CEOs, and just so you're forewarned, gentlemen, it'll be in order: Christopher, Fraser, Alistair, Mike, just so you're all in touch with that, so there's no surprises. What I'm going to ask each of the business leaders to do is to speak for about 5 minutes, no more if you can. And the idea is really for them to talk about what sustainability really means to them, some of the things they're thinking about inside their business. And I'm very interested in this because it'll be an interesting kind of a view about what sustainability means in a New Zealand context to New Zealand businesses. So that's going to be really interesting. And a number of these businesses also have very, very significant offshore links. So that'll be an interesting part of it as well. Then I'm going to ask David and Vicky, as two very senior government officials in the natural resources sector and in the business sector more generally, to respond to that. And then after we've done all of that, then we're going to have a few questions and answers and any reactions that people might have. So I'll first ask Christopher to come forward. Christopher was appointed Group General Manager International Airline at Air New Zealand in May 2011, took over the role of CEO in January 2013. Prior to joining Air New Zealand, he was President and Chief Executive Officer at Unilever Canada. It was one of several senior leadership roles he had during an 18-year career at Unilever, where he worked in New Zealand, Australia, Asia, Europe, and North America. So he's been flying most of his life, as I well know. Christopher, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Gee, I've got to say up front, it's very, very difficult getting CEOs to talk for less than 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Yeah, we're like Fidel Castro, we can go for 7 hours. I want to say a big thank you to Penny. I think this is an absolutely fantastic event, and the work of the SBC to actually genuinely mainstream sustainability into this conversation is absolutely fantastic. So this is the starting point, and this is the anchor, and the work that you've done already has just been really brilliant. So well done. I thought in the comments that I would make today, just really in 3 buckets. The first is really, what is the burning platform for sustainability? The second thing is, what is Air New Zealand doing with our sustainability framework? And then thirdly, talk a little bit about some of the governance things that we're bringing to that process that I think are quite unique and are challenging us as a business and as a leadership team. The first thing I'd say is, what's the burning platform? Because I think the comments are right, that we're still in the process of mainstreaming sustainability. Phil and I came from a conversation this morning called Mood of the Boardroom in Auckland, and it's still getting into the bloodstream of our business community. They're up for it, but they don't quite know what it is and what it's about. But I'd just say, if we take a step back, we have got unprecedented global challenges. Just forget about New Zealand for a bit, just think about ourselves as business leaders. We really have some unprecedented challenges. We've got, as I was writing it down, climate change, rising temperatures, we've got population growth, 200,000 people added to the population every single day. We've got scarce water, degraded agricultural land, we've got expensive energy, poor sanitation, urbanisation, we've got rapidly rising unemployment, especially youth unemployment, inequality, and all those sorts of things. So when you read that list, you get a bit depressed about it. And what I'd actually argue is that volatility, that uncertainty, that ambiguity is actually in fact the new normal for us as business leaders. And so the two responses of one, I'm going to panic and be very fearful about it, isn't going to work. And then likewise, the other option of, actually, I'm just interested in the dollars and the cents and I'm going to bury my head in the sand, isn't going to cut it either. And so we actually, as a new generation of business, political and community leaders, now need to step up and actually say, we will do this confidently and optimistically, and we will find a way through this and try and do growth and sustainability. I think the second big thing is this link between business and community. As I think about it more, it's very clear that I don't want to make any apologies for being a business person. Business has been absolutely critical at lifting billions of people out of poverty in developing and emerging countries all over the world. in a place like New Zealand, in a developed country, you need business to be very strong, so society is very strong. So the platform and the linkage between us and the liberty we have to run our businesses, but the responsibility we have to strengthen civil society are really inextricably sort of linked. And so I think we've got to acknowledge the link and the role that we play in a broader civil society as business leaders. What is obvious is that we have to find new ways to grow and grow very differently along the way. I think the third bucket for me on why the Burning Platform is we're going to need unparalleled collaboration between business, between community and consumers, and between government. And we're all coming from lots of different perspectives within the New Zealand business community and global community, but we're going to need to think about this subject and get ourselves much better educated and much more sophisticated in our understanding of the principles around it. Governments play a role, but there's lots of business people that take shots at government, but they haven't got their own house in order in their businesses. And likewise, business can play a really big role because we have global scale, we don't have the bureaucracy, and we can do many, many things that government frankly can't. But I think we have been missing an action in this conversation, pointing the finger at other places. So that's the first thing I'd say around sustainability is a global burning platform for all of us as business leaders, whether you've got religion yet or not. We've got to get on board that program really clearly. So what are we doing at Air New Zealand? And we've launched something called the Sustainability Framework. And the reason for that is that we've celebrated 75 years of being in business here in New Zealand this year. And it's been a fun year. But what you go back through history and you realise is that we've kind of been there in the good times, we've been there in the bad times, but we've kind of been there. And as we go forward, we've got to find a way to stay there for the next 75 years. And we realised very quickly that our fortunes and our past and our future are inextricably linked to the success of New Zealand. So New Zealand becomes a small place without a thriving and a successful Air New Zealand, and likewise Air New Zealand can't be successful. We don't have a strong and prosperous New Zealand. So our futures are sort of inextricably linked. And so that's why we've created this mission and purpose in our Go Beyond plan called We Want to Supercharge New Zealand's Success Economically, Socially and Environmentally. So we've created this framework, and it is our response to those unprecedented challenges that I alluded to, but also this desire about these pressures that we're facing around economic, social and environmental. And we want to frame our approach and our actions so that we're all aligned around delivering against that. So the framework captures for us a bunch of initiatives around those three pillars that we've got. And if we do that right, we'll get sustained economic growth, we'll get positive social impact and positive environmental impact. And I think that's one of the issues is in New Zealand, sustainability, and having spent a lot of time overseas, it's not understood like that overseas, but here it's understood as environmental only and eco. And it's one aspect of it, but it's not what it's all about. It's got to be about economic, social and environmental, and in particular how those three aspects are all threaded together and work together to be able to do that. So we've got three big pillars, economic, social, environmental. Economically, clearly we've framed that into two areas. We think we can make a big difference to tourism. As of today, I think tourism probably is as big as dairy, which is fantastic, but that creates some other challenges. But what I'd say is, tourism is a big industry. It's our second biggest industry, biggest employment industry in this country, and we bring anywhere from a third to 40% of the visitors here. So we create a lot of downstream benefits for an industry, and we can do a lot to help there. Trade and enterprise, we obviously go to around the world with our network that gets high-value products to markets. There's a lot more work that we could do with small, medium enterprises and helping them open up and unlock in new markets. Socially, we've got a lot to do in our people. We talk a lot that we think we're a really good company, but we don't think we're a truly great and world-class organisation yet. And we've got a lot more work to do with our people, and that's around leadership development, professional skills, talent development, performance management, their capability and the culture of the organisation. And then socially, it's been an interesting exercise in the last couple of months because David, who leads our agenda with James, we've been out and about talking to 800 of our staff, thinking about how Air New Zealand can make a bigger difference socially. We can do a lot of stuff, but actually is it really in the wheelhouse and the DNA and the bloodstream of what we can uniquely do as an organisation versus just signing up and slapping our logo on a few things. So we really want to be very purposeful about that. And there's areas around that our public are playing back to us around, can you help inspire and educate New Zealanders? Can you bring the best of the world to New Zealand and showcase and help us, enable us to actually learn and grow and get more knowledgeable? So, and then the last thing is environmental. We're in the tourism industry and we've got a proposition called 100% Pure, and it needs some functional proof points. It needs to be really, really brought home because the big reason for why tourists come to this country is our environmental asset, and so and the environment that we have. So our big focus is really on carbon. We make no, we're really conscious of it, You know, when you fly aircraft around the world, you're a big carbon consumer. Probably 2 to 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions are coming from the aviation sector. So great economically, really great in terms of people-to-people connection socially, big problem environmentally. So there's a lot that we can do around. We're spending $3 billion on new aircraft. We're operating our aircraft much more efficiently. We're doing a lot of things around waste management. We're with Fraser wanting to move all our fleet into electric vehicles as quickly as we possibly can. There's a lot that we can do around managing our carbon. And then the other big piece is biodiversity. And Lou's here, and he knows a lot about this agenda. But, I mean, yeah, we've got one of the richest and most diverse biodiversity environments in the world, and yet we're under threat big time. And so we've partnered with his organisation and really have a great public-private partnership on how can we do that. Now, on all of those things, I've skated through very quickly in the time, but you know, we can, if you just start to unpack and start to take out those issues down and really think about how we solve for them comprehensively and how we work and partner with others to make them come to life, it's a lot of rich work that we've got to get into over the next wee while. And if we do that right, I mean, as a business guy, I'm sitting there going, sustainability and growth are two things. They're not choices. You actually got to do both of them. And what we're learning is when we reduce waste, we create efficiencies, we reduce costs, that improves our margins. When we start to take the long view and we start to reduce risk in our supply chain, you know, by the way we seek raw material supplies, we're really, through sustainable sourcing, we're really de-risking our business. And my experience is when you start thinking about product development, you get a lot of creative innovation along the way. So we just think we can make sustainability embedded into our business model as we've started to do. And the last thing I'll just say is that what we've also been doing is we've created this Air New Zealand Sustainability Advisory Panel, which you're probably aware of, some of you may be aware of. And the purpose of that is to create a world-class panel of eminent New Zealanders, but also global people who have real expertise on some of the subjects that we're going to find challenging and difficult to deal with. And so it's chaired by Sir Jonathan Porritt, founder of Forum for the Future. We've got Dame Anne Salmon on there, we've got Rob Fennick on there, Derek Handley, Susan Hunt, who's a biofuels expert, which is important in our part of the world, and a few others as well. But that purpose of that panel, which meets 3 times a year, is to afflict the business. I sit on it, David sits on it as well with them, but it's as our critical friend to actually challenge, provoke, and push us to say, actually, not good enough, push harder in this space, redefine your social agenda much sharper, much better than what you've been doing. Yes, you know, how are you going on these goals? And so that idea of having actually a critical friend that is there to provoke and push us has actually been really, really important. So that's probably it. I mean, the key thing to say is interdependence is going to be the way to work, right? We're going to need new ways of working, business with government. We're going to need to see New Zealand working with China. We're going to see large companies working with small companies. Heaven forbid it, we'll have Qantas working with Air New Zealand. We'll probably have WWF working with Greenpeace, would be novel too. So, you know, there's a lot of collaboration and interdependence that's going to be needed as we go forward. But that's it in 6 minutes. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Christopher. Great inspirational stories of how it's done, particularly the idea of trying to come up with an ideal that's bigger than your company, and getting others to work with that's a fantastic experience.